Beauty and the Beast. The Enchantment. In the heart of France, there lived a prince with no love in his heart. The prince was handsome, but despite having everything he could ever have wanted, he was selfish and terribly unkind. One dark and stormy night, the prince threw a party and invited only guests he deemed as handsome as himself. Suddenly, an old beggar woman entered the castle. She offered a red rose to the prince in exchange for shelter from the storm. The prince turned her away. The old beggar woman revealed that she was actually an enchantress. She knew that the prince could not see past appearances. As punishment, she turned him into a horrible beast and his subjects into household objects. The enchantment also made the villagers completely forget the castle and all who lived there. One day, a music box maker named Maurice stumbled upon the enchanted castle. He had been traveling to the market but got lost along the way. Freezing and hungry, he entered the castle, happy to find food and shelter. On his way out, he saw a garden filled with white roses. His daughter had asked for a rose, and these roses were beautiful. As Maurice cut into a stem, the beast appeared. Furious that Maurice was stealing from him, the beast took the man as his prisoner. Maurice's daughter, Belle, was a smart, kind, and brave young woman, as beautiful on the inside as she was on the outside. She had always dreamed of something more than her small town could offer. When her father failed to return from his trip, Belle set out to find him. At the enchanted castle, Belle discovered her father locked up in a dark prison tower. Then she met the beast and decided she would rescue her father herself. Against her father's wishes, she took his place as prisoner. She assured him she was not afraid. She would find a way out. Lumiere the candelabrum and Cogsworth the clock greeted Belle in her cell. Lumiere and Cogsworth secretly hoped that Belle would be the one to break the castle's curse. If their master could learn to love another, and if she could love him in return, by the time the last petal fell from the enchantress's rose, they would all be human again. But time was running out. Lumiere and Cogsworth led Belle to a more comfortable room. There Belle met the kind teapot Mrs. Potts and her sweet teacup son, Chip. She also met Madame de Garderobe, the theatrical wardrobe and opera singer. The castle staff served Belle dinner, treating her as a proper guest. After dinner, Belle snuck off to the west wing of the castle, where she discovered the enchantress's rose and a portrait of the prince painted before his curse. The beast stormed in, enraged that she had trespassed in his private quarters. Belle had had enough. She fled the castle. During her escape, wolves attacked her, but the beast arrived in the nick of time to fight them off. He was injured in the struggle, so Belle helped him get back to the castle. She cleaned a large gash on the beast's arm. His subjects were eternally grateful that Belle had helped him. Lumiere and Cogsworth explained the enchantment to Belle, but kept her potential role in it a secret. Meanwhile, Belle was being enchanted in other ways. Once the beast realized that he and Belle shared a love of reading, he showed her his favorite place in the castle. It was the biggest private library in all of France, lined with books from floor to ceiling. Belle was delighted. That night, the two, each reading a book, shared a quiet dinner at the table. Looking up from the pages, Belle watched the beast plant his face in his bowl and slurp up his soup. The beast's table manners made Belle smile. Belle continued to see the softer side of the beast. They played in the snow, throwing snowballs at each other, then cleaned the castle. With each year's worth of grime removed, the shiny surface of the castle was further revealed. Belle was beginning to see the beast more clearly too. Maybe he wasn't as much of a monster as she had thought. There was kindness beneath the fur and fangs. And the beast was feeling something similar. He began to realize that things weren't as grim and hopeless as he had thought. He was surprised by how much he had in common with Belle. One night, the beast revealed to his staff that he had strong feelings for Belle, but he felt she deserved to fall in love with someone better than him. He met Belle in the ballroom, which had been restored to its former glory. He and Belle danced gracefully and shared a special evening together. Belle admitted that she missed her father. The beast gave her his magic mirror. In it, she could see her father being bullied by the villagers. The beast encouraged Belle to go help him. He loved her and knew he had to set her free. The beast only wished he could have done the same for his enchanted subjects. In the village, Belle fearlessly faced those who tormented her father. Maurice had told them that Belle was trapped in the enchanted castle with the beast, but they thought he was out of his mind. To prove her father had spoken the truth, Belle revealed the beast to the villagers through the magic mirror. Belle's plan backfired. The villagers set off and stormed the enchanted castle. The beast's subjects defended themselves, sending the villagers running. The villain Gaston tried to kill the beast, but met his own end. Belle raced to the beast's side. He had been badly injured. Meanwhile, all the beast's subjects began to lose their remaining human traits as the last petal of the enchantress's rose fell. Was it too late? Then Belle told the beast she loved him. The enchantment began to lift as dawn broke over the castle. One by one, the subjects, including Lumiere, Cogsworth, Mrs. Potts, and Chip, turned back into humans. The beast was once again a handsome prince, though now he was kind and selfless and had love in his heart. Later that day, the entire castle celebrated. Maestro Cadenza played the harpsichord as his beautiful wife, Madame de Garderobe, sang. Everyone waltzed across the ballroom, thrilled to be human again. Belle was very happy that the prince was alive and well. The enchantment over the castle might have lifted, but the enchantment of love between Belle and the prince was just beginning. It wasn't long before Belle turned the castle library into a schoolroom to teach boys and girls how to read. The prince watched her with pride. They would have a wonderful, beautiful life together, fuller than Belle could ever have dreamed. She and the prince had recognized the inner beauty in each other and would live happily ever after because of it. Beauty and the Beast. Something more. This is the story of Belle. Belle was smart. She loved to read. Belle carried books everywhere. She read about far-off places. Like always, Belle bought bread from the baker. Every day was the same in the small village. She longed for something more. The villagers did not understand Belle. They said she was different. Belle held her head high. She was brave. Belle was also kind. She gave her bread and jam to a beggar. Villagers saw Belle reading. They called her odd. Belle tried to ignore the villagers, but she wondered if they were right. A man named Gaston also saw Belle. Gaston was a rude brute. His best friend was Le Fou. Gaston thought Belle was beautiful. He wanted to marry Belle for her looks. Gaston asked Belle to dinner and Belle said no. He did not see Belle for her beauty within. Belle hoped one day someone would understand her. She longed for something more. Belle talked with her father, Maurice. He told Belle that she was fearless and daring. Maurice told Belle to ignore the villagers. He loved that his daughter was different. Belle loved her father very much. He made her feel like she belonged. He and his horse Philippe were leaving for the market. Belle said goodbye to them. The next day, Philippe returned to the village. Maurice was nowhere to be found. Philippe's reins were torn. Belle knew something was wrong. She set out to find her father. Clues led Belle into a strange castle. She knew her father must be inside, but she did not know what else she would find. Belle was smart and brave and kind. She soon found out the castle was enchanted. Her fairy tale was about to begin.
Disney Princess, Beauty and the Beast. One cold night, an old beggar woman knocked on the door of a beautiful castle. She offered a young prince a rose in return for shelter. He took one look at the woman's rags and sent her away. But the old woman was actually a beautiful enchantress in disguise. She cast a spell on all who lived in the castle and turned the prince into a hideous beast. With him, she left an enchanted mirror and a rose, which would bloom until his 21st birthday. If he could learn to love and be loved before the last petal fell, the spell would be broken. If not, he would be a beast forever. In a nearby village, a beautiful girl named Belle had just borrowed a book from the bookshop. "It's my favorite," Belle told the bookseller. "Far-off places, daring sword fights, magic spells, a prince in disguise." Like the people in her books, Belle longed for adventure and romance. Gaston, a handsome hunter, wanted to make Belle his wife. But Belle had bigger dreams. Gaston snatched the book out of her hands. "Belle, it's about time you got your head out of those books and paid attention to more important things. Like me," he said, tossing her book in the mud. Suddenly, a loud boom came from the cottage where Belle lived with her father, Maurice. Belle hurried home to see if he was okay. Maurice was all right, but something was bothering Belle. "I'm not sure I fit in here," she told him. "There's no one I can really talk to." "Don't you worry," he assured her, "'cause this invention's going to be the start of a new life for us." Then, with the tightening of one last screw, the machine roared to life, and Maurice soon left for the fair with the family horse, Philippe. When they reached a fork in the road, Maurice had Philippe take a shortcut. But after a while, it started to get dark, and a gloomy mist filled the air. Tree branches towered over their heads as wolves howled in the distance. "This can't be right," Maurice said. Without warning, a swarm of bats flew out from a tree and scared Philippe. The poor horse threw Maurice and bolted, leaving him alone in the forest. A pack of hungry wolves growled at Maurice from the darkness. He ran away, but lost his balance and stumbled down a hill. When he looked up, the wolves had him cornered by a gate. "Help!" he cried, shaking the bars of the gate. "Is someone there?" Just then, the gate creaked open, so he quickly slipped through. He made his way to a castle he saw in the distance. Cautiously, he opened the front door. Inside, the castle was very dark, so he picked up a candelabrum to help him see. Suddenly, the candelabrum started to talk. A nearby mantel clock started to talk too. The objects were enchanted. "Come warm yourself by the fire," suggested Lumiere, the candelabrum. Cogsworth, the mantel clock, did not think that was a good idea. Suddenly, a hideous beast stormed in, growling from the shadows of the room. "So, you've come to stare at the beast, have you?" he said, glaring at the intruder. "Please, I meant no harm," said Maurice. He was so scared he could barely speak. "I just need a place to stay." But the beast wouldn't listen. Roaring angrily, he grabbed Maurice and locked him in the castle tower. Back in the village, Gaston arranged to marry Belle outside her cottage. There was only one problem. He hadn't proposed yet. He confidently knocked on Belle's door, walked in, kicked off his muddy boots, and started to talk about the future. Their future. Belle knew where that was going. So when he leaned in to kiss her, she opened the door. Gaston tumbled out of her cottage and landed in a pool of mud. Her answer was no. Belle couldn't believe Gaston had proposed. He didn't understand her at all. Once she was certain he was gone, Belle went for a walk in the hills to clear her head. When Philippe ran across the field toward Belle, her father was nowhere to be seen. "Where's Papa? You have to take me to him," she said. Philippe took Belle straight to the gates of the castle. There she found her father's hat. She knew she was at the right place. Cautiously, she entered the gates and went inside the castle. "Papa?" she asked. "Are you here?" But no one replied. She wandered through dark corridors and long hallways. Finally, she came to a staircase and walked up the steps. When she reached the top of the stairs, Belle found her father. "You must go, now!" he warned her. There wasn't enough time to explain. Suddenly, the beast appeared from the shadows. "He's my prisoner," he told her. "Please, let my father go. Take me instead," said Belle. The beast agreed and sent Maurice back to the village. At the village tavern, Maurice rushed in, upset about the ferocious beast. He told Gaston and the villagers he needed their help to rescue Belle, but everyone thought he was crazy. "We'll help you out," said Gaston. Then they threw Maurice out into the snow. Once Maurice was gone, Gaston thought of a new plan to make Belle marry him. At the castle, the beast showed Belle to her new room. He explained she could go anywhere, except for the West Wing. When she asked why, he lost his temper. Belle didn't ask the beast any more questions after that. She even refused to eat dinner with him that night. "I've lost my father, my dreams, everything," cried Belle, as the objects in her room tried to comfort her. "Cheer up, child. It'll turn out all right in the end," an enchanted teapot told her. "You'll see." The enchanted objects were excited to meet Belle. They thought she could be the one to finally break the spell. So, later that night, when Belle wandered into the kitchen, they whipped up a delicious meal for her. "Be our guest," they sang, trying their best to make her feel welcome. After dinner, Belle couldn't possibly think of sleeping. It was her first time in an enchanted castle, so Cogsworth gave her a tour. But when he wasn't looking, Belle climbed the steps to the forbidden West Wing. At the end of a hallway, she found herself in a dark room. A torn portrait of a handsome man hung on the wall. Nearby, a glowing rose wilted in a glass case. Belle reached to touch the rose, But the beast stormed out from the shadows. "Do you realize what you could have done?" he growled, growing angrier with every word. "Get out!" he yelled. Terrified, Belle fled the castle with Philippe. Belle rode through the dark forest as fast as she could toward the village. But something was wrong, and Philippe skidded to a stop. Wolves emerged from the trees and surrounded them. Philippe reared up in terror, sending Belle into the snow. Just as a wolf lunged at Belle, a powerful claw reached out and saved her. It was the beast. He stood over Belle, ready to protect her at any cost. The wolves attacked, but the beast fought them off. He was badly injured. Looking at Belle with sorry eyes, he collapsed into the snow. Belle knew she couldn't leave him there, so with Philippe's help, they took the beast back to the castle. Meanwhile, Gaston plotted his next move. "Everyone knows her father's a lunatic," Gaston began. He also knew Belle would do anything to protect her father. So unless Belle agreed to marry him, Gaston would have Maurice thrown into an insane asylum. At the castle, Belle cleaned the beast's wounds. It was not an easy task. "That hurts," he complained. "Well, you should learn to control your temper," she replied. The beast was quiet. He knew Belle was right. "By the way, thank you for saving my life," Belle said gently. The beast could not believe his ears. No one had ever thanked him before. After that night, something changed inside the beast. Knowing how much his new friend loved books, the beast showed Belle the castle's impressive library. "It's wonderful," she said. She was surprised by his kindness. As the days passed, the beast tried to behave like a gentleman at the dinner table. He and Belle even fed little birds outside the castle together, and had a snowball fight. As Belle and the beast read together by the fire one night, the enchanted objects could not contain their excitement. They were certain that Belle was the girl to break the spell. But the objects knew that the last rose petal would soon fall, so they prepared a romantic dinner for Belle and the beast. "And when the time is right," Lumiere told the beast, "you confess your love." Dressed in their finest clothes, Belle and the beast enjoyed a splendid feast together and shared a dance in the ballroom, looking deeply into each other's eyes. "Belle, are you happy here?" the beast asked when they finished dancing. "Yes," she said, looking away. Even though she was happy, she missed her father dearly and wanted to see him again. So the beast handed Belle the enchanted mirror. He explained it would show her anything she wished to see. She asked to see her father. He suddenly appeared in the mirror, but he was sick and lost in the woods. "You must go to him," said the beast. He hadn't told Belle that he loved her, but he cared so much that he let her go. Taking the mirror with her, Belle rushed back home. The beast was heartbroken. Belle found her father and brought him back to the cottage. He was surprised that the beast had been kind enough to let her go. Suddenly, someone knocked on the cottage door. The townspeople had come to take her father away. They thought Maurice was crazy for believing in a ferocious beast. Gaston grabbed Belle's arm. "I might be able to clear up this little misunderstanding if you marry me," he said. "Never!" Belle cried out. "My father's not crazy. I can prove it." She grabbed the enchanted mirror and showed the beast to the villagers. "He's really kind and gentle," she told them. "He's my friend." But no one would listen. "We'll rid the village of this beast," Gaston said. Then Gaston and the villagers locked Belle and Maurice in the cottage and went to find the beast. Belle and her father managed to escape and rushed to the castle. They saw Gaston on the roof attacking the beast, who was too sad to defend himself. "What's the matter, beast?" said Gaston. "Too kind and gentle to fight back?" Belle begged Gaston to stop, but he ignored her and stabbed the beast in the back. As the beast roared in pain, Gaston slipped and fell off the roof, never to be seen again. The beast was badly injured. "At least I got to see you one last time," he said, bringing his paw to Belle's cheek. Then he closed his eyes and sank to the ground. "No! Please don't leave me!" cried Belle. "I love you!" Inside the castle, the enchanted objects watched as the last rose petal fell. It was too late to break the spell. But then, magical streaks of light began to fill the sky. The beast turned back into a prince, and the enchanted objects returned to their human forms. The spell was broken. "Belle, it's me," said the handsome prince who stood before her. Looking into his eyes, Belle knew it was him, and they shared their first kiss. It was then that Belle knew her dreams of adventure and romance had all come true.
Disney Princess, Belle and the Castle Puppy. Belle was strolling through the castle garden one chilly spring day when she heard a whimpering sound. A shivering puppy was huddled by the castle gates. "Oh, you poor thing," Belle cried. "Let's get you warmed up and fed." She wrapped the puppy in her red cloak and hurried to the castle kitchen. The enchanted objects laughed when he splashed in his bath. The dinner forks combed his fur while he gobbled a bowl of warm stew. Chip and his siblings giggled when the puppy drank water from them. "He's so cute! I hope we can keep him," Chip said. But one enchanted object didn't join in the fun. The Ottoman watched the puppy. He remembered when he had been a real dog. Suddenly, he wanted some attention too. With a funny little grrr, he thumped around the kitchen, trying to act like the puppy. But no one noticed. Just then, the puppy bounded to the door, barking eagerly. "Do you want to go out to play?" Belle asked, opening the door. As Belle and the others followed the puppy outside, they didn't see the Ottoman slink out and wander off alone. They laughed as Belle threw sticks for the puppy to fetch. Just then, the beast walked up the path, clutching one of his precious rose bushes. "Someone has dug up my roses!" he shouted. Then, the beast saw the puppy. "Did that dog dig up my garden? Get rid of him! Now!" "I can't leave him in the woods," Belle argued. "He needs a home." "He's not getting one here!" the beast roared as he stomped away. Belle knew that the beast loved his roses. But what about the puppy? Just then, the Ottoman ran past Belle and the others. His legs were muddy. "Ottoman dug up the garden!" Belle exclaimed. "But why?" Lumiere asked. As Belle watched the Ottoman racing after the beast, she suddenly understood. "Oh, poor Ottoman," Belle said. "He just wanted some attention too." Suddenly, the puppy raced after the Ottoman, barking playfully. Belle tried to call to them, But the ottoman and the puppy disappeared among the trees. "They'll get lost," Belle exclaimed. "I have to bring them back safely." "But it's getting dark," Mrs. Potts protested. Belle looked at the long shadows creeping through the forest and shivered. Clutching her red cloak tightly, she took a deep breath and started toward the trees. "Wait!" Lumiere called. "I'll come and light your way." "Thank you," Belle said as she held the candelabra up high. "I'm glad you're coming." "Me too, I think," Lumiere replied, but his flames flickered nervously. "Puppy! Ottoman!" Belle called as she and Lumiere searched. Something rustled in the bushes. Yellow eyes gleamed at them. "What is that?" Lumiere whispered. "I hope it's just squirrels," Belle answered. "They must be very big squirrels with very big eyes," Lumiere replied. Belle picked up a large stick. Then she and Lumiere walked on, calling and calling. Suddenly, they heard ferocious barking and snarling nearby. Belle ran toward the sound and stumbled into a clearing. The ottoman and the puppy stood under an enormous tree. Snarling wolves circled them, but the puppy was growling and snapping. "He's protecting Ottoman!" Lumiere exclaimed. "He's too small to stop those wolves for long," Belle answered. "He needs help." Quickly, Belle put Lumiere on the ground and lit a stick with his flames. Turning swiftly, Belle ran at the wolves, swinging the blazing stick at them. "Get away! Get away!" she shouted. Snarling angrily, the wolves backed away from the fire. Belle raced toward the ottoman and the puppy. Just then, Belle tripped on a root. The torch flew from her hands. "Oh no!" she gasped. The torch hit the ground and rolled just out of her reach. The growling wolves crept toward her. Barking fiercely, the puppy raced to the flaming stick. He snatched one end in his teeth and darted among the wolves. As the wolves backed away, the ottoman ran in front of Belle, yapping for her to follow. "The puppy's clearing the way!" Lumiere shouted to Belle. "Follow Ottoman!" Suddenly, the beast crashed into the clearing. The wolves scattered, yelping with fear. The danger had passed, but the puppy's nose and ears were singed and sore. "He and Ottoman tried to save me," Belle said. "They are brave little fellows," the beast answered. Cradling the puppy in one arm and the ottoman in the other, he led Belle to the castle. After the puppy had been cared for, everyone settled at the fireside. Belle watched the beast stroke the ottoman and feed the puppy biscuits. The gentle smile on his face made her happy. "May the puppy stay until I can find him a home?" she asked. The beast cleared his throat. "His home is here, with us," he answered gruffly. Belle smiled, knowing the beast loved both of his pets dearly. The next evening, as Belle and the beast waltzed in the ballroom, the puppy and the ottoman proudly kept guard at the door. Both wore shiny new badges, and on each badge were the words, "Protector of the House." Beauty and the Beast. Once upon a time, there lived a young prince in a beautiful castle. Although he had everything his heart desired, the prince was spoiled and selfish. One winter's night, an old beggar woman asked the prince for shelter from the cold. In return, she offered him a rose. Repulsed by the old woman, the unkind prince turned her away. The woman warned him not to be deceived by appearances, since beauty is found within. When the prince dismissed her again, the old woman's ugliness melted away to reveal a beautiful enchantress. The prince tried to apologize, but it was too late. The enchantress knew there was no love in his heart. As punishment, the enchantress turned the prince into a hideous beast. Then she placed a spell on the castle and all who lived there. The rose she had offered him was an enchanted rose. It would bloom until the prince was 21. If he could learn to love and be loved in return before the last petal fell, then the spell would be broken. If not, he would remain a beast forever. Ashamed of his monstrous form, the beast hid inside the castle. A magic mirror was his only window to the outside world. As the years passed, he fell into despair. Slowly, the rose began to wither. He did not believe anyone could ever love him. In a nearby village, there lived a beautiful young woman named Belle. Belle, unlike the other girls in the village, cared only for her books. She always felt out of place. Belle loved to read about adventure and romance. Her father, Maurice, loved books too. Maurice was an inventor, a genius, according to Belle, a crackpot, according to the townsfolk. Belle is even stranger than her father, the villagers whispered. Her nose is always in a book, and her head is in the clouds. Gaston, the handsomest man in town, wanted to make Belle his wife. Even though she thought he was a brainless brute and turned him down again and again, Gaston was determined to wed the lovely Belle. One cold day, Maurice hitched his horse, Philippe, to a wagon and set off to show his latest invention at a faraway fair. But Maurice read the map wrong and became lost in a forest. As an icy wind whistled through the trees, he suddenly heard the howling of wolves. Philippe bolted and Maurice fell to the ground. Trying to escape the wolves, the frightened man ran deeper and deeper into the woods. He came to a castle and stumbled inside. There, he was greeted by Mrs. Potts the teapot, Cogsworth the clock, and Lumiere the candelabrum, who had all been servants to the prince. But before he had time to marvel over these strange creatures, an even stranger one appeared, the beast. When Maurice stared in horror, the beast howled angrily. Then he scooped Maurice up and carried him off to a dungeon. Meanwhile, Philippe had made his way back home. Belle took one look at the riderless horse and knew something awful had happened to her father. "Philippe, take me to him!" she cried, leaping into the horse's saddle. Without a pause, Philippe thundered off toward the woods. When they reached the castle, Belle burst inside and searched frantically for her father. The enchanted objects led her to the dungeon, but just as she found Maurice, the beast appeared. Belle let out a terrified gasp at the sight of the hideous creature. She begged the beast to free her father. When he refused, she bravely offered to take Maurice's place. "No, Belle!" Maurice cried, but the beast agreed to the exchange. Before Belle could bid her father goodbye, the beast led her to her room. "The castle is now your home," he said gruffly. Belle was free to go anywhere she liked, except the West Wing. "You will join me for dinner," the beast ordered. That's not a request." Still, Belle refused, and the beast stomped off in anger. That night, Belle slipped out of her room and found her way to the forbidden West Wing. There, she saw the enchanted rose by the window. When she reached out to touch it, the beast suddenly appeared on the balcony outside the window. Belle screamed and fled from the room. Belle ran out of the castle, mounted Philippe, and galloped off into the night. But a pack of wolves soon had them surrounded. Belle was helpless. Suddenly, the beast was there, throwing the wolves aside. Belle heard terrible snarling and howling as the beast and the wolves battled for their lives. At last, the wolves ran off into the woods, but the beast lay in the snow, badly injured. Back at the castle, Belle carefully tended to the beast's wounds. Gentle as she was, the beast roared in agony. "I barely touched you," said Belle. Then she saw the look of pain on his face. "I forgot to thank you for saving my life," she added softly. The beast only grunted in reply. But when Belle turned away, a hint of a smile appeared on his face. In the days that followed, the beast tried to be a proper host. He showed Belle his library, and she began to teach him how to act like a gentleman. "Perhaps it isn't too late," Cogsworth whispered to Mrs. Potts and her son Chip the teacup. If Belle could only love the beast, this dreadful spell might yet be broken. Before long, Belle thought of the beast as her dearest friend, and the beast thought of little but the beautiful Belle. One night, while she was teaching him to dance, the beast asked, "Belle, are you happy here? With me?" "Yes," she said, without hesitation. But the beast saw a trace of sadness in her eyes. Then Belle added, "If only I could see my father again, even for a minute." "You can," the beast said, handing her the magic mirror. Belle gazed into it and saw Maurice trudging through the forest. He looked frail and old. As she watched, he collapsed in a heap. "I must go to him," Belle cried. "He might be dying." "I release you," the beast said sadly. "But take the mirror. Then you will always have a way to look back and remember me." With the magic mirror to guide her, Belle soon found her father and brought him home. But their happy reunion was cut short by a pounding on their cottage door. The townspeople had come to take Maurice away. Gaston's friend Le Fou stepped forward. "Maurice has been raving that you were imprisoned by a hideous beast," he said. "Only a crazy man would tell such a tale." "But it's true," Belle protested. Her worried eyes searched the angry crowd and fell on Gaston. "Gaston!" she cried. "You know my father isn't crazy. Tell them!" Gaston whispered to Belle that he might be able to calm the crowd if she promised to marry him. "Never!" Belle exclaimed. "And my father is not crazy. There really is a beast, and I can prove it." She turned to the crowd. "Look in this mirror and see." The townspeople looked at the beast in the magic mirror and grew frightened. "We must hunt down this savage animal," Gaston cried. After locking Belle and her father in the cellar of the cottage, the villagers rode off to storm the beast's castle. Luckily, little Chip had stowed away in Belle's saddlebag. After the villagers were gone, he used Maurice's latest invention to release Belle and Maurice from the cellar. By the time Belle reached the castle, the townspeople had broken in. Gaston and the beast were fighting on the castle roof. The beast managed to knock Gaston's weapon from his hand. There was nothing to stop him from killing Gaston. Gaston screamed for mercy, and the beast turned away from his enemy. Then, Belle watched helplessly as Gaston plunged a knife into the beast's back. The beast roared in pain. Backing away from the wounded beast, Gaston lost his footing and fell off the roof into the fog below. Belle rushed to the beast's side. "You came back," the beast said weakly. "At least I can see you one last time." "No, no," Belle said, sobbing as she kissed his cheek. "Please don't die. I love you." Moment, the spell was broken. In one magical instant, the beast turned back into a prince, and the enchanted servants returned to their human forms. The castle came to life with rejoicing. There was no doubt that the loving couple would live happily ever after.